This is Geek Gab with your hosts, John, Brian, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Sunday, January 15th, 2017. Welcome, folks, to everyone listening, and welcome to all of the many, many millions and billions of people, no doubt, hanging out in the chat right now. Today, and there's a lot of territory we can cover today, but the name of the show, the name of this episode is Travelers Telling Tales and Watchdogs. And we are going to talk about, and hold on to your seats here for the shock of all shocks, the Netflix TV series Travelers, the recently released Ubisoft video game Watch Dogs 2, and also a question by Scholar at Arms over on Twitter about telling tales, telling stories in fiction versus video games. So that's what's on deck for today. But before we get there, we want to stop and let our co-hosts get a word in edgewise. How are we doing today, guys?
I'm doing great. It's been a long week, long 2 weeks. Sorry for sitting out last week, y'all. I listened to the episode. It was a great episode. You carried on just fine without me. It was, it's the NFL playoffs. As those of you know, my team is the Green Bay Packers. We're doing well. We're going to play the Dallas Cowboys today. The number 1 seed Cowboys. So that's going to be an uphill battle. And puppy time has pretty much eaten up all my gaming time. The only thing I've been able to do here and there is catching up with D&D 5th edition. Just read through the Dungeon Master's Guide. You might have heard me bellyache about it on Facebook or Twitter.
Like the first 100 pages said absolutely nothing worthwhile.
Yeah, maybe it's a great introduction for someone who's new to role-playing and being the Dungeon Master, but it was definitely lighter on rules in the first 100 pages. You know what? Which made it pretty boring for me because given that, you know, the conventional wisdom is that 5th edition sort of goes back to the old school style of game, or you know, they were influenced by the old school revival, that I was expecting more of the, if you want to run this type of game, here's a set of rules that you can use, you know, to do that sort of game. Like, here's how to do a hex crawl, like, you know, a wilderness exploration. Here's how to do. And it turns out that all that stuff is actually in there. In the end, it's a really good book. It just happens after the first 150 pages or so.
What do they spend the first 150 pages on?
There's some little rules here and there, but it's a lot of, you know, okay, here's your first RPG. Here's world building. Here's, you know, gods and goddesses, that sort of thing. All sorts of stuff that, contrary to what y'all were talking about last week, I don't think is very important to actually running the game. You know,
is a role-playing game? Did you ever play Cowboys and Indians as a kid?
That one's in the player's handbook.
It was?
Something like that. Well, not that,
wow.
Not that actual line.
Well, they are going old school. Anyway, continue, please.
Oh no, it definitely picked up pretty much right after I took a break and went back to the book. The second half of the book is chock full of great things like, if you like to run this type of game, here's a way that we recommend you do, like wilderness exploration. And they go through the whole thing, like, you know, how much time it takes to travel, encounters and things. Here, you should get a hex map. You should write the map, and here you should make a key with, this is what happens when they enter these regions, that sort of thing. There's a lot more help that way towards the back of the book. And then, of course, there's like probably a fifth of the book is just magic items and stuff, which someone coming from 2nd and 3rd edition, it's way cut down from previous editions. It's like a really nice small list of magic items. It isn't like, if it's a spell in 3rd edition, it was like, if there's a spell in the player's handbook, there would be 2 or 3 magical items that were just sort of permanent uses of that spell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely got crunchy in the second half of the book, and well worth the read, I think. I think it's going to help me convert my game to from 3rd edition to 5th edition, which was sort of, I wanted to see if I could do that as a goal.
That's a good goal.
Do you think that's going to help the play of the game, moving from 3rd to 5th?
Yes, I believe that by the two main things it's going to do is cut the number of rules associated with a character sheet. The skill checks are very simple in this one. For the most part, everybody has to keep like 1 or 2 bonuses in mind, right? Either I roll this because I'm unskilled, or I roll this because I am skilled. And that bonus doesn't, changes with level. So it doesn't change in between sessions, except for in between sessions. And there's no feats or anything like that. Sort of all the cool stuff that classes do are already built into the class. The other thing is simplified combat rules. I don't do much grid stuff. I don't do much miniature stuff. But at the same time, there's so many like different options for what you want to do in combat in 3.5 that I think sometimes that bogs down the game, especially with the rules lawyer at the table who's always being helpful in like telling people things that they can do, and it's just like you're just dragging the game down. Dragging it out, not dragging it down. He only drags it down when he just happens to memorize the perfect set of spells for that day and shuts down all encounters.
So preposition is important, folks.
It is one of the conundrums when you're playing and or designing a game that the more choices the players have in combat, the longer combat takes. Even a very streamlined, well-designed game, if players have a lot of options, it will slow combat down a lot because they will spend a lot of time trying to figure out which is the optimal option to take right now. And unlike, video games, there's no time pressure unless the game master chooses to impose one, and most players find that irritating. But there's no time pressure typically in tabletop role-playing games, so players can take as long as they want and frequently just stop doing combat for upwards of half an hour arguing about or discussing about what would be the best particular maneuver for this one character to do this one action in this one round of combat.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It drags it down. I want to go back. I took a moment to bring up the actual book itself. I only have it on PDF. I don't have the copy in front of me right now. Just to give you an idea of where you need to start in the DMG. Like if you're an experienced gamer or game master and you want to pick up the DMG and run 5th edition, check this out. Chapter 1 is the first 40 pages, building your own world. Skip it. Chapter 2, I shit you not, the next 25 pages are about the multiverse. And don't get me wrong, back in the 90s, I owned almost every Planescape supplement. I absolutely love this stuff. This is like a waste of 25 pages. Skip it. Then they do 15 pages on creating adventures, another 10 pages on NPCs, and then they finally, like around page 100, we're 100 pages in, now they start talking about the environments, like dungeons and wilderness and stuff like that. And then they do treasure and other stuff like that. And so by the time, the first 100 pages are mostly garbage. And then the next 75 pages are starting to get into good stuff. And then they go really interesting in part 3, where they start, quote unquote, running the game.
So it sounds like it's really front-loaded.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's front-loaded for newish people. But in my experience, that's what people get hung up on. Like, I want to create my own world with all these things, and I want to draw the map and everything. And in my experience, you spend a lot of time drawing a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter, because what matters is sort of that interaction between you and the players right at the table.
And that was the advice I passed along last week, which is apparently by Ray Winiger in his Dungeon Craft column, is you only create stuff one step ahead of the players. You don't have to create everything in the world right from the get-go, with a couple of exceptions. Like a list of gods for clerics, that's fine. If you're going to have a cleric, you probably need that. But you don't have to create an entire source book. You don't have to, make your own unique campaign box set in order to get a dungeon crawling game off the ground. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of work and energy for most people.
Yeah, anecdote about that. So a while ago, one of my buddies who's a great GM, don't get me wrong, but he pulled out a world-building role-playing game where the game is for each player to basically design his own race. He kind of spiced it up with some traveler tech levels where you could level up the whole race. So it's kind of like SimCity meets D&D. So we went through the entire history of each of our races and went like from the dawn of that race, and you could decide whether they were created by a god or evolved from natural processes. Yeah.
That's Spore, the role-playing game.
Yeah, there you go. And we got all the way up to where like my race had space travel and stuff. And then we switched it to the World of Darkness system to sort of play in this. It's like, okay, that's basically, the creation narrative of this world is what you guys made, and now we're going to play in it. And we ended up hardly using anything from the world building exercise that we spent like 2 weeks on.
See, if I could, the thing is, I firmly believe in that advice to only build the as much of the game world as you need to one step ahead of the players. That's great advice. It's absolutely advice that game masters should follow. But the last D&D campaign I ran, I absolutely did not do that. I had to go in entirely the opposite direction, to where I had the big multiverse figured out, where I had the entire history of this continent figured out and what was going on, and where this one specific hub city came from and what it was doing. And that was absolutely crucial during the play of the game for me as a game master. The way I run things, absolutely need that. So the other piece of advice, or the first piece of advice I would give every single game master ever, is to know yourself and know your style. And that's going to take time if you're just starting out, and know your players and what they kind of want and will find enjoyable. Those two things will stand you in better stead than 99% of the game mastering advice you find out there. You just know yourself, know how you tend to game master and what will help you run your game best, and know what your players will like. Everything else is just fine-tuning those two pieces of information.
Here.
Wisdom dropped. Brian, how about you? How's your week?
Well, I've been kind of under the weather lately, so I've mainly just been hanging out on social media.
Anything new or exciting we want to discuss on the show? No. Okay.
Well, one thing is next week on Inauguration Day, me and the Superversive crew are going to be holding the launch party, the official launch for Forbidden Thoughts. So it's going to be a pretty big Google Hangouts live streaming marathon. Some pretty big names tentatively.
I'm tentatively scheduled to come on that as well. So.
Oh, sorry. Did I let a cat out of the bag you wanted to announce?
No, not. I'm just mentioning that. I wasn't going to announce that at all. But now that you did, I'm just kind of casually mentioning that I'm supposed to come on there as well. Jason Rennie, because I usually come on the Superversive Streamcast. Right. And so I guess he just decided to invite me to come on the launch party for Dangerous Thoughts, or what?
Oh, we love you. We love you there. You're very big there, so I'm not surprised.
His daddy Warpig, he's big everywhere.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I am, in point of fact, big in Japan. All right.
Nice.
Big in Japan tonight. Big in Japan. The Eastern Sea so blue. Does nobody know this song? Man,
nope.
I'm so old. Anyways, seriously, neither of you guys know what song that is?
Went right over my head.
There's a group called Alphaville.
Oh,
Alphaville did a song called Big in Japan. Yes. I did not know that was such an obscure piece of musical trivia now.
I know the band. I'm just not familiar with that song. So
yeah, you know the band because they have like one song people play like almost 24/7. That's a great big 1980s song. But that particular song was also a bigger hit for them. But apparently it has been lost to the ages. That is so sad. Let's move on. I'm trying to now. We've used up about half the show already, so I'm trying to think how we can crunch this down. We don't have all that much time left. Do we want to just talk about storytelling next week or the week after that? Because we've got an author coming on next week.
That might be a good idea if we could just kind of table that, get another expert opinion on that.
Because that's a big topic. I mean, that topic we could easily spend 15 minutes on and just blow the whole rest of the show, or tack on another 20 minutes at the end or whatever. So we'll push that off to one of the next times. So let's do Watch Dogs real quick. And I'm assuming because of puppy-related time commitments and sickness-related time commitments, and the fact that I didn't talk about this until yesterday, neither of you have played Watch Dogs 2, am I right?
Correct.
That's right. Puppy-related gladness.
Versus puppy-related sadness. Did either of you play Watch Dogs 1?
Negative.
Parts of it, like a little of it at a friend's house.
Okay, so let me say this. Watch Dogs is a Grand Theft Auto clone, or what they call an open world driving / racing / shooting game hybrid. We have a big section of San Francisco, and
Is Chicago?
It is not Chicago. That's Watch Dogs 1 is Chicago.
Okay.
Watch Dogs 2 is San Francisco.
Oh, I thought you were describing 1. My fault.
And then your character he's a hacker, but he's neither a Hollywood hacker nor a real world hacker. And in fact, he's not much like most video game hackers that I have ever played. And I'm thinking here of like Deus Ex, Human Revolution, or the hacking mini games from BioShock 1 and 2. There's very little hacking mini games. There's only one of them, and it only shows up at specific times. And most of the rest of the time, hacking is just a matter of clicking the right button at the right time, and you just automatically do something. You don't have to play a mini game every time you hack. And your hacker is a member of a hacking collective called DeadSec, and there is a corporation who has made a city infrastructure OS, one operating system that runs an entire city, and cities all across the country are adopting this, and they're using their access to traffic cameras and security cameras and people's phones and everything else in this city. They're using that access to leech data from the population and then using that data for various nefarious means. And this offends you as a hacker, and it offends your hacking collective. And so as a collective, you go to war with this super powerful corporation to try and expose all their deep, dark secrets and bring them down, and also bring the other groups who are in society or are working with them down. You can kind of think of it as a Shadowrun, a low-tech Shadowrun campaign, because gameplay typically revolves around you as a player breaking into various locations, either sneakily or loudly, or, as is my case, start off trying to sneak, but inevitably go loud later, stealing data or uploading viruses or committing other acts of sabotage, and then trying to get the heck out before the security guards who shoot to kill and or the cops And there's also gangs you can tick off. Sometimes you have to break into gang areas before they catch up with you, and then you're driving away real fast trying to get away. So that's the setting of Watch Dogs 2. The gameplay is familiar to anyone who's played either Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row or any of those other open world driving games. The Mafia series. I mean, I don't know how many of these we can name. There's tons of them. Crackdown. And on and on and on. You have cars, you can drive around, you have guns, you get into gunfights. If you do bad crimes, the cops will chase you, or the gangs will chase you, or these security guards will chase you, so on and so forth. And you can use your superb hacking abilities, your access to the mainframe of the city to do cool things when people are chasing you or when you're breaking in, like setting up a trap on a gas main so that when the cops drive through it, it blows up, makes a big crater in the roll, and, you know, blows up the cop car or the gang car or whatever. So that's the gameplay. And it has politics, and its politics are incoherently libertarianish, left-wingish. Corporations are evil, and the government is also corrupt, and you're pretty much the only good people left fighting against the evil corporations, the evil gangs, and the evil government. Nobody in the game escapes being targeted. They even have, for one small series of adventures, a Scientology cult stand-in that you have to break into and, discover that their big secret tablets, supposedly from Sumeria, are actually, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, are actually fake. They're plaster. They're not ancient rocks that were chiseled at the dawn of time, revealing deep secrets that the new dawn has brought forward and discovered to uplift society. That's not true, surprisingly enough. And then you also have to rescue somebody they've kidnapped. It's a take on Scientology and a take down of Scientology. I haven't finished the main quest line yet because I spent all of my time running around the board searching for research points, which is your experience. You level up your technological abilities, you get your ability to hack into the city infrastructure, your ability to hack into vehicles, all of things like that. Yeah, you can hack into cars as they're driving along the road and make them, steer left or right. It's really helpful when you're driving fast down the freeway and you need to clear your lane of traffic. You just hack all the cars in front of you and they suddenly steer out of your way. You use research points and specific innovations you can discover in the open world to upgrade them, so you can get more XP by completely ignoring all the side quests and all the main quests and drive around the board picking up these research points. You can also pick up new vehicles. You can also pick up paint jobs for your guns and your vehicles and your drones. And you can also steal money. And so my playthrough during the first half turned into a weird retelling of the second Death Wish movie, where I drove around the map looking for gangs and either sneaking in and stealing their drug money or sneaking in and getting caught and killing them all and stealing their drug money. And so I was a masked vigilante of the more violent sort, maybe the Batman versus Superman Batman without a costume. I enjoyed the game because I enjoyed that open world part. I enjoyed running around and getting all that stuff and exploring the map. If messing around in the open world is not something you enjoy, you probably won't enjoy the game. All of the missions tend to blur together after a while because they're all the exact same thing pretty much. Whereas Grand Theft Auto 5 had a great variety of missions. In this mission, for example, you're flying a huge military helicopter and picking up a submarine and taking the submarine out into the ocean and dropping it, and then stealing something from the bottom floor of the ocean. This is Grand Theft Auto I'm describing, not Watch Dogs. And then getting back in the helicopter and flying away while you're shooting at the private military contractor who's chasing after you in boats and in helicopters, and you're trying to blow them out of the sky before they blow you out of the sky. That is just one mission in Grand Theft Auto 5, and it's not like any other mission in Grand Theft Auto 5. Unlike Grand Theft Auto, the Watch Dogs 2 missions are very samey. However, in the first Watch Dogs, they had several missions that were stealth missions that were auto-fail. That is, if you were spotted one time by the guys there, you automatically failed the entire mission. You had to start over from the beginning. They have apparently taken that out. So that's the only reason I bought Watch Dogs 2 is because they did take that out. Because otherwise, as my description of my play style may have indicated, I am not capable of going through an entire mission stealthily. Sooner or later, things get loud and I go rock and roll. Now, that's not quite true. I actually got through several missions stealthily, but typically that's an accident. I usually have to go loud. So I've enjoyed Watch Dogs 2 quite a lot, despite the politics and despite the somewhat samey gameplay in much of the game. They have all the same elements and missions that they try to use in different ways, but they're too similar to really provide it as much variety as the number of missions would allow for. That's my review of Watch Dogs 2. It's a fun game for me if you enjoy those things and you also don't find the drawbacks to be that big of drawbacks. You'll probably like the game, but it's far from a perfect game. Also, their DLC is kind of obnoxious, but not as bad as The Crew, whose DLC pushing was in your face all the time and really, really painful. So I'll pause for a bit and see if we have any discussion of it.
That was a robust review. Well done. No, I do feel informed. If I were going to buy the game, my choice would be informed now.
I agree, and actually I think it tells me a lot more about Daddy Warpig than I realized. I think now I have a better understanding of the Madden guys, the guys who get this Madden game every other year, or anything, because Daddy Warpig likes that style of game, and they just wait a few years and come out with a new version of that game, even if a lot of it is samey and even if the missions sort of run together. Dagnabbit, Daddy Warpig wants to sit down and run around and do these driving and shooting missions and explore this open world. Give him that, and he'll buy it.
Yes, that is the truth.
You're allowed.
So now all the 1600 Assassin's Creeds and the Calls of Duty and all the Maddens, they all make sense now. There's a niche for everybody.
Yeah, and that's actually the great thing about this age of gaming is there are lots of different games, and if you have a particular niche, you can probably find a game that suits you. Unless you like space flight combat simulators. There's nothing out there for you. Nobody loves you. Wing Commander went away and it's never coming back.
All kinds of flight simulators. Does anybody make a flight simulator anymore?
Microsoft Flight Simulator, but there's no space combat flight simulators like Wing Commander. I think you get a couple levels of them. Like Infinite Warfare had missions that let you do that, and those were fun missions. And Halo Reach had 3 missions like that, or 2 missions like that. But as far as like an entire game, like Wing Commander or X-Wing or TIE Fighter, there really aren't that any games out there that lets you do that. Elite Dangerous is kind of that, but that's Elite. It's not a TIE Fighter, an X-Wing, or a Wing Commander. So, all right. If we don't have any other questions, I'll kick it to Travelers.
What is a Travelers?
Travelers is a Netflix TV series. It's a time travel TV series. 10 episodes right now in the first season. It's about a number of people. There's 6 main characters who come from a far distant future in which the world has been very nearly destroyed. People are living in domes. They have very limited food. All of the animal life has died out. We never see this future. We only hear it spoken of between characters. And their minds have been projected backwards in time into bodies of people who were about to die. And so their minds arrive in the bodies, they call them hosts, of people who are about to die, and take them over and then conduct missions for the director in an effort to stave off this future disaster, in an effort to change the future and stave off this future disaster and hopefully save the world. So that's the setup. And it's a great setup, and it's an interesting setup, marred by the fact, and I'm going to get maybe probably into a little bit of spoilers here, marred by the fact that as the series goes on, it's absolutely clear that people who made the show don't know what they're doing with it. It's got that vague problem of they do this with vague ideas and they do that with vague ideas. It is not a tightly plotted show. And I spoke last week of the Netflix series of the Amazon Prime series, Man in the High Castle. The second season of that was precisely plotted to where everything that went on in that entire season fit together in the very last episode to make sense. You could see why each of the little pieces came together. This show does the exact opposite of that. Nothing makes sense. Nothing that happens gives you any sense or belief that the writers know what the future is like, that the writers know what they're doing, what the missions are in the present, that the writers know anything. They're just kind of running with the premise and trying to do cool things with that. They have no plotting from over the whole season at all. Whatever happens within an individual episode along the season wide, it has no plotting. Also, the show was good up until episode 6, and episode 6 just shot downhill so far it destroyed the rest of the season and made it kind of painful to watch, because the very climax of episode 6 revolves around what people are and are not allowed to do. They have this code of 6 commandments. We don't know what all of them are, but one of them is leave the future in the past, which is when you come back in time, you don't talk about who you were or what you did in the future. You forget the future, you focus on the present. One of the other rules is don't kill anybody and don't save anybody. Don't kill anybody from the present, don't save anybody from the present, because you can create changes in the timeline that are unpredictable. And these 6 commandments are very specific, and how they play out should have a big impact on the end of this episode, but they don't. This episode just goes really wonky. It goes completely off the rails, and nothing that happens in this episode makes any sense at all, and that kind of just sabotages the rest of the series, because that's when you realize the people writing the show don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what's going on. They have no idea, maybe even of the mechanics of their own time travel. And you can tell because the very first time they start talking about the actual consequences of time travel. Well, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Why can't you go further back in time if you make a mistake to correct it? The very first time they start talking about that stuff is in the next episode. It's like they got up to episode 6, wrote this, really, really disastrously bad episode, and then suddenly realized, wait, we have to figure out the mechanics of time travel now. And it was at least 1 episode too late. I would argue 6 episodes too late. They should have done that first. Because unlike a role-playing game, a TV show like this at least needs to have the rules figured out from the start. It needs to have the setting figured out from the start so that you know what's going on and you can kind of focus on that. A lot of people seem to like it. I watched the whole thing. There are a lot of interesting and entertaining things that go on, but on the whole, it's only a mediocre series. It's not great. Netflix, it's 3 out of 5 stars. I actually rated it 2 out of 5 stars, but for the purposes of this review, I would give it 3 out of 5.
Ouch. Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction right now that the ending of the whole series is going to be weak.
The ending of this season was definitely weak and nonsensical.
That's what you get when you fly by the seat of your pants, folks. Friends don't let friends discover you right.
Did you wait? Friends don't let friends what?
Discovery right.
Oh, they've got a name for it. I like it.
They have multiple names for it. Gardening as opposed to being an architect. So you can be a gardener and architect, or a pantsing, flying by the seat of your pants versus outlining. Yeah, it sounds like these guys really needed an outline and just, I'll just skip that. We'll figure it out as we go along. And that's how you get weak endings.
See, I'm not much of a writer, but when I do write, I prefer to write with no pants. And so I don't have any of that problem.
That's the third school of writing. I do believe that's James Patterson's approach. I don't know. I could be wrong. More power to you.
All right. Well, we are definitely, actually, we're not as much past time as we've been for the past couple of episodes. We're definitely, past the time limit. So do we have any final thoughts or questions or comments? Ryan?
Just a reminder to check out the Forbidden Thoughts launch party on the 20th, on our inauguration day. Yeah, if people are on YouTube, they'll probably be watching the festivities live, but after that, come and check us out. We'll be going all day. And also check out my books, Secret King, Soul Cycle Book 3. I've got a solid all 5-star reviews on Amazon right now. People really seem to like it. And of course, check out Forbidden Thoughts with stories by yours truly, John C. Wright, Vox Day, and forward by Eileen Yiannopoulos, and nonfiction content by Larry Correa, former guest on the show.
Any thoughts or comments, John?
Oh, that was a great show, guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
All right, we are. This has been Geek Gab for Sunday, January 15th, 2017, episode 82. And you can get us every time we do a show live and jump in the chat at youtube.com/geekgab. That is youtube.com/geekgab, or we tweet out the link, send it out on Facebook and Gab. If you want to subscribe to either me or Brian or Dornall, we have our Twitter handles, our Twitter links. You can subscribe to us in the description of the video. Also, if you want, you can subscribe to the podcast version of this that gets sent out on SoundCloud, iTunes, and the Google Play app. Just do a search for Geek Gab in all three of those places, and you can listen to us on your favorite devices or in web browsers if you don't have the time to come in and listen to us live. We appreciate everyone who's tuned in today and everyone who's tuned into all of our shows. Go ahead, give us a listen, and I would suggest, liking us and subscribing and stuff, but apparently subscribing to the show doesn't give you timely announcements of when we're doing our next show, which is kind of disappointing to me. But subscribing anyway, just because, hey, it's cool for all of us. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We are signing off for today, but don't worry, we will be back.